Welcome to the 20th Creative Lee Art Exhibit sponsored by the Lee Library Association. My name is Mary Philpott. In the past years, I have welcomed you to our gallery filled with the wonderful art created by members of our community. But things are quite different this year. Our library is only open a few hours a day, and the gallery is filled with books in quarantine that are ready to be cleaned for use by the patrons. But rather than cancel our art exhibit this year, we're going to present you with a virtual art show. We have quite a variety of artwork from many of our returning artists and several new ones. So I hope you will enjoy our show. We'll begin with a short video from Myron Hood. Myron has surprised us with his art and creativity since the third Creative Lee show, and this year it's no different.
Well, Mary Philpott, in the last 36 hours I've managed to come up with something that you inspired me to make. This beautiful desk set is made for you, and it's got the springs and the little wiggle on the pens to match it, and the library pencil, and it's all made out of beautiful hand-carved roping on birch with a tiger maple holder for little objects. And this is my 2020 entry into Creative Lee, and I hope you enjoy it as soon as I can get it to you.
Our next exhibit is a set of stoneware pottery mugs created by Jim Hosford. These mugs were created on a potter's wheel and decorated with a band of scrollwork to highlight the effect of the brown glaze. The two glazes used to create these mugs are some of Jim's favorites. Jim has taught pottery both in schools and in his studio at the Lichtenstein Center. He is a wonderful teacher and very patient with students of all ages. Jim Hosford's second exhibit is a set of mugs and coordinating bowls. These mugs and bowls are part of the many sets Jim created, each unique when things were closed. For anyone who has ever tried making pottery on a wheel, it's quite the feat to get two of anything to come out the same size, much less multiples. The next piece is a planter created on the wheel and embellished with handles. This is a piece I made in Jim Hosford's class. Robert Hill painted this next scene from the Tulip Festival in the Netherlands. Bob Hill pays great attention to detail in all of his paintings, from the leaves to the reflections in the water running through the park. This lovely, peaceful summer scene from Tanglewood was painted in acrylics by Sandra Hayes. Sandy is a member of the board of directors at the Lee Library. Sandra Hayes' second painting also captures a typical warm, lovely day in the summer, with daisies leading us to a path to the lake and a perfect day for sailing. Joan L. Davidson's first painting in this show is inspired by the lushness and diversity in nature that she observes in Sarasota, Florida. Joan has depicted that very well in her painting with the thick growth of trees and vegetation. She is intrigued by the rhythms created by the relationship of the tree trunks and the ever-moving palms responding to the gentle breeze, and that too is captured with the flowing forms of the tree trunks. Joan is an award-winning artist and has exhibited in many galleries. Caroline Young shares a photo of a wonderful discovery in her yard. This photo of a Polyphemus moth couple is quite the sight. This is the giant silk moth, one of the largest and most beautiful moths. This moth has an average wingspan of 6 inches. The moth was named Polyphemus after the giant Cyclops from Greek mythology because of the purplish eye spot on the wing. Now we'll look at some photos that can be considered fine art photography. In these photos, the artist uses the camera as one of the tools for creating this art, just as the artist uses paints. It is experimenting with the camera, just as a painter or potter experiments with the tools of that medium. These images can be abstract, elicit emotion, and present us with new images or a new view of something that we have not noticed before. The first of these photographs is Sheila Heflin's wonderful image that tells the story of this young boy and his adventure to Canoe Meadows in a creative and artistic way. Sheila has created an image of Canoe Meadows that she sees, but we may have never seen this before. In the next two photos, Sharon Sider has experimented with iPhone photography in a kaleidoscope to create images that have many layers to them. Slight changes in the kaleidoscope can produce totally new and exciting images. These new images contain some of Sharon's favorite things to photograph in nature. We see bleeding hearts, moths, butterflies, caterpillars, but seen here in a totally new way. Thad Kubis presents us with an artistic image of a rusting road grader. He has included the information on the camera used to create this image. Thad's use of light and shadows has created a totally new image that highlights the details of the piece, the repeating patterns and movement in this image. Fine art photography is frequently done in black and white, as Thad has used in this and the next photo. Thad has taught some wonderful classes about fine art photographers a short time ago. If you have the opportunity, take advantage of his classes. There's so much to learn about this genre. In Thad Kubis' second piece, Thad created a very dramatic image of the Great Sand Dunes. Again, the camera information is included. Capturing the light at the exact moment behind the hills gives added depth and movement, both in the clouds and the changing sand dunes, resulting in this spectacular fine art photograph. Dylan Kubis, a first-time exhibitor in Creatively, is presenting us with an image of a 1940 Pontiac Woody from a different perspective. The way Dylan focuses on the unique geometry and form of this classic vehicle accentuates the design and beauty of the Woody. His image gives the vehicle great power. Dylan Kubis' second photo is that of a 1938 Plymouth wagon. In this wonderful light, Dylan created a view of this vehicle that gives it a different image, focusing on the vertical lines, the curves, the symmetry, and some great reflections. It's no longer just a vehicle, but Dylan has produced an artistic image that can be enjoyed on many levels. Now to another medium, this time it's paper. Robert Hill created miniature paper pyramids, and from the pyramids created an abstract paper sculpture. Bob used a Cricut to make the pyramids. Bob likes trying new media in creating all of his artwork. Diane Westpizer created this quilted piece titled The Housatonic River, and this was done in the summer of 2020. She notes that the Housatonic River bisects our town and has made news this year for the potential PCB cleanup and locally placed toxic dump site. The river's beauty, gracefulness, and biodiversity is seldom mentioned in the news stories. This spectacular map quilt, constructed with improvisational piecing and bias tape applique, maps the 149-mile river's journey through Massachusetts and Connecticut, leading to the Long Island Sound. The photo on the right shows an enlargement of the detailed quilting, which is quite spectacular. Diane Westpizer's second piece is this artistic quilt titled Fallen Leaves, which was made in 2019 and shown in February at QuiltCon 2020 in Austin, Texas. This quilt was inspired by an October walk through the woods with colorful leaves underfoot. The fabric was chosen in autumn leaf colors, machine pieced, and recut to form an improvisational composition. Next, the piece was quilted using a variety of embroidery threads and stitches to mimic the diversity of leaves found on a walk in the woods. The detail of the embroidery is shown on the right. Our next painting was done in acrylics by T.F. Rubino. Tom has used fall colors to create this explosive basket of flowers. His work has energy and movement from his fluid brushstrokes. Tom paints both realism and abstract paintings and was inspired by an artistic family. T.F. Rubino's second painting is a very strong image of a beast of burden. Tom captures the animal's strengths and movement as the animal emerges through the gates. Our next painting is from a returning artist, Christopher Smith, age 8. Christopher has done a terrific job painting this horse and rider, a very difficult subject. The horse appears to be moving, and he has a lot of detail in this scene from the bridge to the moving water. Sharon DeLorme, another library board member, has again painted her favorite themes, cows and barns. Sharon's paintings have also been a favorite of our visitors to Creative Lee exhibits in the past. Sharon's paintings capture a very pleasant summer scene with the cluster of sunflowers and grasses to add interest to the very content cow in her lovely painting. The next painting, A Bit of New England, captures a view of a covered bridge, which is a rare sight these days. This was painted in acrylics by Barbara Scalfaro. Scenes of New England seem to be a favorite theme of Barbara's and have been part of our past Creative Lee shows. Barbara Thompson's first piece in this show, A Breath of Fresh Air, is a painting she did during the pandemic to show that even though we're stuck in, there was still a breath of fresh air of enjoying the outdoors. Barbara Thompson's second painting is The Light in the Fog. This is a wonderful painting that shows calm and peace even during this difficult time. Sharon DeLorme's second painting is this old barn with the sun shining through some beautiful clouds across the sky, giving the barn a lovely glow. The flowers in the foreground give a hint of better times gone by and create a tranquil scene. William R. Hall Sr. presents a very tranquil scene with a winding path titled Walk With Me. Bill used acrylics to paint this work. Bill is an art teacher at the Senior Center and has given many hours teaching to the seniors in our community. The second painting in this show by William Hall is titled Perfect End to a Day and is also painted in acrylics. A beautiful scene like this with the purple mountains in the distance and golden sky would indeed be the perfect end to a day. We also have a video called The Bone Finder. This video was created by Leo Mahoney.
Hidden away on mysterious October Mountain in Massachusetts, where UFOs, Bigfoot, and ghosts are said to be seen, lies a forgotten cemetery. Ravaged over time, most of the stone markers that identified the dead are gone, and partial burial records most likely do not account for every soul resting in the small clearing. With the help of the bone finder, Robert Perry, and the technology of ground-penetrating radar, we will look below the surface to locate many of the unmarked graves. Join us as the bone finder tracks the dead.
My name is Bob Perry, and I have a company called Topographics. We are in the cemetery mapping and ground penetrating radar business. And right now we are located in October Mountain in Washington, Massachusetts. And we are at a West Branch cemetery. And what we're going to be doing here is kind of assessing the area to try to find out how many burials or how many graves are located in the cemetery. My first assessment of the area is that you've got a lot of pitting in the ground. And that's a sure indication that you have burials that are located here. How many? I don't know yet. We're going to find that out as we go along with the GPR, the ground penetrating radar. And we're also going to be mapping the cemetery as well to get some idea of where the headstones are located and how they're positioned. What happened in this particular situation, it could have been a wooden coffin, and the coffin was collapsed completely and is down to about 2 or 3 inches. So when we use GPRing, it will measure soil disturbance in the ground. It does not measure You don't look for bones. You don't see anything of that nature. There could be a metal plate. There could be a void that's in the ground, and that's what we're looking for. When we're using the GPR, we're looking for voids in the ground. When we do this, when I determine if I have a burial, when I have these things lined up, what I like to do is that as I'm scanning across the ground, what I'll do is I'll get a hit. On the recording on the computer, we'll see what they call a hyperbolus, which is like an upside down U shape. We're going to set up the GPS. And the GPS we're going to set up before we start scanning. We're going to set the GPS, and we're going to GPS the location of all the headstones that you see here. There's a laser beam on the other side of this that goes from here directly to the tripod. There's a prism on the top of the tripod. And the laser beam will stay right for it. As long as that laser beam is not broken in the direction between the tripod, the robotic, and him, you'll constantly keep that no matter where he goes. And this is a 400 megahertz antenna, and it shoots down, and this is where you get the radar from. Now, what you're looking at right here, this is a burial. So the white areas that you see here, these are all burials. Stone right here. Yeah. See? There's your stone right there. So there's a stone right here. There's probably a buried headstone right here.
We're putting stakes in the ground every 4 feet according to our tape measure here.
That particular cemetery was in a very rural part of town, not connected to a church, not connected to a family, but it was a town cemetery that was in a bad location. Flood that went through that area and created an incredible amount of damage down in Lee and Lenox, where water ended up. Now there's stories that have been handed down around what happened in that flood in terms of how many coffins might have been washed away and sent down stream. It was hard to determine. There really wasn't exact records kept during those times. And I think, it was considered a serious tragedy to the town that had happened, but had no way to remediate, the situation. And then because of its location, it was heavily vandalized. Stones were knocked down, broken, stolen, whatever. And it has been in pretty much disrepair over the years, and now it's, I guess, to the point where there's only one stone standing. The rest have been knocked down.
Even though it may be a little bit of a hill structure right here, up here I don't see anything that would represent that you would have some sort of a flood that would come down and actually do that much damage where it would wash out the graves and take away a lot of the graves. Simply for the fact is that graves are in the 3 to 4 foot level. So and I don't see any impressions in the ground except for a couple of them, but those impressions that we see in the ground are basically collapsed coffins. If there was a flood in this particular area or any part of the cemetery, you would see the ground washed out like this. The ground would be like, it would be all washed out, whether it's down in here or the top, but you don't see any of that in here at all. You don't see any washing. What we're looking at right here, as we're scanning the line, I will flag the anomalies where I see them in the ground. And then I want to be able to pick up a second anomaly beside it before I classify it as a high probability of a burial. Get one right here. This may be, no, this is, yep, this one right here in the middle. The headstones may have moved a little bit, but yeah, we got one right here, right back up. There's one right here. I believe this might be is this the Anna Pease grave? Yep. This is probably it right here. I can see it right here on the screen. It's right here. See it right there?
Yeah, can you tilt that down?
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
My name's Jeff Belanger, and I've been researching legends for almost 20 years now. I write about them in books, I host a television show about them, I lecture about them, and I'm just captivated by how a legend is really our past coming to our present. And it's a connection with each other, and it's a way to kind of explore our own inevitable future. So I first heard about a ghost haunting the top of October Mountain, probably back around 2006. All I knew was there was an abandoned cemetery somewhere up there, and a ghost of a little girl has been seen. That's all I knew. And these legends float around all kinds of places. So the first time I went up there, I was actually looking for all kinds of things, because there were Bigfoot sightings on October Mountain. There were the ghost sighting and UFO sightings back in the 40s that we found in the newspapers have been spotted around there. So we go hiking up, and this is the largest state forest in Massachusetts. It's tens of thousands of acres, totally huge. And we didn't find anything, but it was a really great hike. We found the remains of Camp Eagle. We found some cellar holes, so we know people lived up there, but you know, a cemetery somewhere near the top is a needle in a haystack. So a few years later, I went back with a television crew and a guy that knew where it was, and he brought us up there and took us, and I could see how it'd be difficult to explain where it is. It's like saying, you know, there's a big rock and you go over that and you go by this tree. So we go into this clearing, and it's not that big. I would say maybe a quarter of an acre or so in size, and all the headstones are knocked over. But suddenly the legend gets some roots to it, because now there really is a cemetery. We're standing in it, we see it, and we walk in sort of on the left side of it and then come in just a bit, and there's this grave, Anna Pease, age 10 years, 9 months. And I looked down and I went, there is a little girl buried up here. So the story airs on television, and then we get a phone call about a month later from a guy named Nelson Pease. And he said, I'm a Pease. I'd never heard of this grave. My family's coming in from Minnesota for Thanksgiving. Could you tell us where it is? And we started talking to him, and we said, we can do better. We'd love to take you there. And this was just a few days before Thanksgiving, a few years ago. And we take the family up there, and they brought in this antique pump organ. And the wife played the organ, and she played a song called Gentle Annie. And it was just this really special moment. And the whole family sings, you know, thou will come no more, gentle Annie. Thy spirit did depart. And I just thought, I was getting completely choked up just a few days before Thanksgiving. And I thought, okay, this is how powerful a legend is. You don't have to believe in ghosts, but a ghost story first led me up that mountain a decade ago. Exploring that story helped me give a little girl a name again, and telling that story reunited a family. And though I don't know much about Anna Pease, who she was in life, I can tell you this. Up there around that cemetery, there was a logging community that provided timber and things for the surrounding areas. And people lived up there, and they worked up there, and they died up there. And these folks are all but forgotten. That grave probably hadn't been visited by family in over 150 years. And at that moment, I said, I can't put a ghost in a jar and show it to the world, but that's as real as it gets, just shy of you know, physical proof. Anna Pease haunts up there, however you want to define the word haunts, because we need to remember the pioneers, the people that were here before us. Not just our family, not just our upbringing, but the people that forged a really hard living up there, in the mountains, in the cold. I mean, you can imagine up there, it would be snowing. We're down in a valley, it might be rain. It was a hard life, but they did it, and they were here before us, and they laid groundwork that we still feel today. And I think that's what makes this story so special. Anna Pease, I don't know so much about her in life, but I know what she represents. She represents hundreds, if not thousands, of long-forgotten villages around New England, around the world, places that came up, a little industry was born, but they never made it. And maybe we'd forget about them entirely if not for a ghost story.
Remember me as you pass by. As you are now, so once was I. As I am now, so you shall be. Prepare for death and follow me.
I was working, I got a call to do a job in Sparta, Georgia. Now, down there, it's a very rural cemetery area. It's out in the country area, and there was an old Baptist church that was there, and the Baptist church was basically torn down. And other than the church being there, there was just a foundation and an old outhouse that was falling down. Now, this area, you could tell if anybody was coming down the roadway, because you would see dust being kicked up for a mile, because this was like 3 miles into the woods. And you'd see dust being kicked up. So for 3 days after the gentleman, my client left, I couldn't find, there was not one person that drove down this roadway the entire time that I was there. And I was there, like I said, for 3 days. So I'm working down there, and at the end of each day, I would collect all my gear. And so on the last day that I was working there, this happened to be Halloween, and I was working in the area, and I was probably about 30 feet away from this outhouse, an old outhouse that was torn down. And as I'm collecting my gear, and it was just turned dark, and out of the left-hand side of my eye, in peripheral vision, I see this full-size image walk into this outhouse. And at that particular point, my hair, the back of my neck, I got a sickening feeling in my stomach, and I turned around and I panicked. And what I did, I just made a right, he was on my left, I made a right turn, I beelined for my truck. I hit my truck, I get in my truck, my heart's pounding like crazy, the hair is still standing up my arms and stuff like that. I turned the lights on, nobody was there, completely gone. And so what I did was, I was so scared out of this, I decided to leave all my equipment there and go back to the hotel. I wasn't a believer in ghosts up until that particular point, but after having that experience, I just do not like to be in cemeteries. So when it gets to be dark, I am out of there. This particular job itself is very, very unique, simply for the fact that it has a lot of historical value to it. And it's one of the better projects that I've worked on. Meaning is that I was really surprised that the grass was so low, and sometimes when the grass is high or the vegetation is high, it's very, very hard scanning. So given the fact that we're of the location and there's been no mowing up in this area, the ground conditions are excellent. And I would say this is probably one of the better cemeteries that I had the opportunity to scan.
Here they lie, 58 men, women, and children who called October Mountain home. For 46 years, the cemetery slowly grew until the villagers left the mountain in search of better opportunities. As the years passed, the forest began to surround the cemetery, and it was almost lost to the annals of time. But thanks to dedicated local historians and researchers who painstakingly scoured burial records, most of the West Branch occupants have been identified. And now, thanks to the Bone Finder, we know for sure where they rest.
The stone, the family would select the size and the type of stone and the engravings to be put on it. The most famous one that I can think of is, and I'm not sure whose it was, but it says, "I told you I didn't feel good."
The next two paintings by Marianne Fitzhugh are scenes from her travels. The first is a watercolor with a bright yellow door, And walking around Reykjavik, when Marianne came by this house, she knew she was close to the place where they were staying and not lost. So this painting is a reminder of their wonderful trip and this important landmark. Marianne Fitzhugh's next painting is an oil painting of a scene in Vilnius, Lithuania. This painting, with the distinctive area with the castle-like building on top of the hill and the buildings surrounding the street below, is another reminder of a great trip. Mario Calori's dramatic paintings are scenes from his travels in Alaska. In the first painting, The Interior, the dark colors and sharp lines project the energy and strength in these mountains, and the shadows and curves give movement to them. The light emerging from behind the mountain gives life and depth to this scene. In the second mountain scene, the feeling is softer from the snow on the peaks and the softer sky. Mario Calori titled this painting Up Close, Alaska. These are not static paintings, but full of life and energy. The next painting, done with acrylics, was created by a new exhibitor, Susan Aldham. This painting is titled Dance of Hope. With just the outlines of their bodies, the dancers project a joyous feeling in their movements. Susan noted that her work ranges from realistic to abstract and a combination of the two. At age 18, Susan sold her first piece of art while showing on the lawn of the Berkshire Museum with the Berkshire Art Association. Our next painting is an oil called Maya Sleeping by Joan L. Davidson. This work was inspired watching Joan's 11-year-old granddaughter sleep peacefully under a Navajo blanket in Santa Ana Pueblo, New Mexico. Joan's paintings have been selected to be in the National Art Education Electronic Gallery and in the Electronic Gallery of NAEA Women's Caucus. The next few paintings are centered around an ocean or water theme. The first of these is an acrylic painting by Belinda Twing. Belinda is a new exhibitor who loves the ocean and finds it very peaceful. She feels the waves come in to take your troubles back out with them. Belinda has always wanted to learn to paint nature the way she sees it. Rhode Island Beach Tarry is the second of Susan Aldham's paintings, and it's done in oil. This is a wonderful painting of this group at the water's edge. Susan has exhibited at a variety of locations around New England and New York State. She has also taught art to students of all ages in a variety of schools, as well as in her studio. Bambi Jandro created her beach scene in acrylics. It's titled If. The scene captures a typical summer day at the beach with the bright blues, but the title leaves one to speculate what the artist really had in mind about this day. The next painting is Truro Houses after Mitchell Johnson. Mitchell Johnson is one of my favorite artists. These white beach houses in Truro, painted by Johnson, were very appealing, and I painted them and hope they capture the same feeling as his painting does. Our youngest exhibitor, Colton Smith, age 6, contributes to this group with his painting of Sail. This depicts a perfect day on the water with people in the boat having a wonderful time sailing. And the last of our pieces in this theme is a mosaic glass piece by a new exhibitor, Lauren Long. In what Lauren called a touch of the divine, her husband acquired the full accomplishment of a professional stained glass artist. She said all it took was the magic of the sun shining through the glass and the snap of the glass, and she was hooked. During this pandemic, this art form has become her outlet to happier, sunnier times, allowing her to perch with pelicans, swim with turtles, and visit long-lost coves. She hopes her artwork will take you on the same journey. In Christopher Smith Jr.'s second piece, he gives us his view of dog days, from the clouds to the tree and his very special dog. Colton Smith's second piece focuses on a special flower, which is the title of his painting. This cheerful view of the garden is a welcome sight. Mary Polari is sharing something new this year, and that's a barn board quilt. This is created on wood, often pine, with a large painted quilt pattern. This is very reminiscent of Amish quilts and the paintings on barns. Sometimes these quilts were used as tables as well. Mary's barn board quilt is done in her favorite colors and has a very special message. A second video, created by Leo Mahoney, is called Lucky Saturday and is great entertainment.
Fortune for me. Fortune coming 1, 2, 3, as all good things come. I took a midday constitutional by the shore of Silver Lake, taking into account the trash left on the ground by Pittsfield's ill-bred savages. Tomorrow, I said, I'm coming back with a couple of 30-gallon garbage bags, do the housekeeping at this little lake, making a comeback from barbarian GE abuse. Then, right down there, amongst the empty Fireball nip bottles and scratch tickets and chicken bones and bloody Kleenex, there was Lincoln, stuck in the mud, a $5 note, anchored in place by grime. Stuck it in my pocket fast, saying, "Thank you, Jesus, for the free money. Now what?" Overcast Saturday, 40 degrees, wind 25 miles per hour from the west. What's that blowing in the reeds? Somebody's dirty jeans? Oh, shit. Shh. It was a blue heron, first one seen this year. We winked at each other with restraint. Providential bird holding steady against the airstream. Blue heron's mojo cured my cancer. Can your white buffalo do that? Lucky Saturday. I said, "Lord, I am not worthy, but what else you gonna show me?" Savages in my apartment building savaged the laundry room again. Filth, smells, routed apparatus. I walked to Lori's coin op. She weighed my bag at 15 pounds. Had not been to Lori's in years. She looked at me in the eyes and said, "Damn, Bob, you got old." So, you definitely get the senior discount. One lucky Saturday, $5 bill, first blue heron of the year, price cut at the laundry, fortune coming in triplicate, as all good things come.
Our next pieces are very colorful, but in a style called pop art, which was very popular in the 60s. This is a style of modern art and is based on bold images in bright colors. This also describes the next two pieces perfectly. Wayne Taylor, a very prolific painter, has painted The Girls, a very colorful group of girls, each with a different expression, and this is painted in acrylics. Wayne Taylor's second piece is called The Inner You. These are very classic pop art paintings. Deirdre Consolati has created a collage using a carved teak from Bali frame, pressed autumn leaves, mica, and a photo of Edward Curtis. Edward Curtis was born in 1868 and died in 1952 and was an American photographer and ethnologist whose work focused on the American West and on Native American people. This photo that Didi used came from a discarded calendar from the Lee School and was brought home to their mother, in whom they noticed a resemblance. This collage is titled Blessed by Sun. Deirdre Consolati's second piece is a miniature 3x5 reverse etched glass with the photo by the artist. The title is Commune Swimming Hole, Montague, Mass. Dee Dee noted that the communal movement in the 1960s brought about sweeping changes in American history. The last few pieces represented various examples of American culture. This wearable art piece is another example. This jacket is being created by Sharon McDonald. Its inspiration is a ballet that is being choreographed by Sharon. She's going to talk about this in a short video, but here you can see the jacket in much greater detail. Well, welcome to Sharon McDonald. And Sharon is a choreographer, a dancer, and a teacher. And she's had working creatively before, and she's got something very different this year to show us. And so welcome, Sharon. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your project and what you're working on, and then we'll talk about it in greater detail.
Oh, thanks, Mary. This is fun. Thanks for doing this. Yes, I've been working on a choreography project for about 2 years now, and it's a full evening of ballets to the music of Jimi Hendrix. And while I've been working on the choreography, I've been reading books about him and about the 60s in general, and also going back to the music of the time, which is actually my age group. So I love 60s and early 70s music. You name it, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, to Led Zeppelin, and of course Motown as well. So I've really been immersing myself back in that time period. And one day I walked into a Goodwill store, and there was this Hard Rock Cafe denim jacket. And I looked at it. It was an authentic Hard Rock Cafe jacket, brand new with the retail tag still on it. So I couldn't resist. And then after I got home, I realized in fashion magazines, I was seeing a lot of denim jackets at that time. And some of them were decorated with patches and pins and even feathers and flowers. So I thought, gee, that might be a lot of fun. And I found my first patch at a tag sale, which was a Harley Davidson patch. And I thought, oh, that'll work. And since then, I've been just finding patches, and I found some great pins at flea markets, and then I started collecting the buttons. So it's truly become my rock and roll jacket.
It's a piece of American culture as well. It's a really great piece of American culture. So
I guess so, yes.
Yes. So let's look at some of the things on your jacket. This sounds like a pretty neat jacket and such great collection. So do you want to show us some of the pieces?
Oh, sure. Yes, it was certainly a lot of fun. So, of course, I have my Jimi Hendrix patch. It's going to come out backwards, but
no, it's fine.
And Led Zeppelin is one of my favorites because I just like the logo.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
And and then this side, I have the Who.
Neat.
And Rolling Stones.
Right.
And they're all their classic logos.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the back of the jacket had the Hard Rock
Cafe. Mm-hmm.
Cafe insignia. And I did have to, it had leather on it, pieces of leather, but it was peeling. So I started peeling it off and realized, oh, it's nicer that way.
Oh, that's cool. So you've really created wearable art.
Yes, yes.
Nice.
And then all the buttons, there's all kinds of buttons on it in the front. I have, this pin I found in an antique store, and I love it because it has the music G Clef. It has some dancers and it has a boot, cowboy boot. And then I started finding Hard Rock Cafe memorabilia. This one's a button from London, New York. But then I also found a Seattle one and Newport Beach, California.
Terrific.
And I found out from that the Hard Rock Cafe actually has a so-called collectibles series.
Uh-huh.
So I
now
haven't
you have another-
really,
Yeah,
so I can start searching for those.
that will be.
So it's just a fun project. I
It is.
love antiquing anyway, so I'm always looking for dance books and theater memorabilia. So now I'm looking for rock and roll items too, I guess.
That's great. So have you created other wearable art or other pieces of, I think you were doing a multimedia piece at one point, were you?
Yes, yeah, this is the first, I think, piece of art, although I'm always making costumes for my performances. A few years ago, it was Fascinators for ballet and staying up all night making hats with feathers and things like that. But with the Hendrix piece, I was able to find the classic poster from Jimi Hendrix Experience with the Indian temple dancers on it.
Wow.
And yeah, that's a real classic. And I found a copy of it in Northampton, Mass. And I started putting Swarovski crystals on it. So this is a project I started even before the jacket. And it's going to take a little longer. So I've been working on it probably 2 years now, as long as I've been working on the choreography, because the crystals are very expensive. So I buy a few at a time and work on it in my spare time. But it's going to be kind of neat because I've done classical Indian dance, and usually the headdresses have jewels on them. And in this poster, they have gold headdresses. And Jimi has a few necklaces on him, but I've been adding all kinds of necklaces and bracelets. And the Temple Maidens now have lots of necklaces, and their gold helmets are all jewels, and each one is different. There's the Emerald Lady, the Amethyst Lady. So that's another fun project that maybe by next year it'll be
That
done.
will be part of Creatively. That can be part of that then. How is the choreography coming?
Well, it was going well. My original intent was to do 3 pieces, and it comes to about 45 minutes of choreography, which is a lot. And the first piece I completed over a year ago, and it's a solo, and I'm really happy with it. I've had 2 dancers perform it, and one is a young woman from the Northampton area that has performed it maybe 6 times just at art centers. And we did it outside at a rock concert in East Hampton, just to kind of give her a chance to perform it, but it was sort of in a preview state. And then, so that piece is actually done. And then I've been working the past year on another piece, which is actually going to be the 3rd in the series. And it's a group piece. And the music is music that was just released about a year ago. And it was never meant to be actually distributed on a record or anything. His estate is releasing a lot of things that were just never distributed. And it's very jazzy sounding. You would never know it was Jimi Hendrix, but it's a lot of fun to dance to because there's a lot of drums as well as the guitar. And I'm thinking it might have anywhere from 6 to 12 dancers in it, men and women. And the dancers I've been working with in Northampton are really having a lot of fun with it. So that gives me a little courage that the audience will like it as well. And we were about 3/4 of the way done before COVID-19 struck. So we're looking forward to get back together, and hopefully everybody remembers the choreography. That's always
That will be quite a challenge. So is it pretty unusual to have something like rock and roll piece go with ballet, or
yes and no. There's not too many people that have done that, but there have been some random concerts in the past. Joffrey Ballet did a really famous piece called Astarte in the 60s to contemporary music, and they didn't know how the audiences would accept it, but it turned out to be a classic now. And then one company, I don't know if it was Joffrey or American Ballet Theater, did a whole evening of Prince music. And that is on DVD now. I didn't see the live performance, but what they did there, they hired several choreographers to each pick a song. So the style was very different for each song, but a lot of fun. So once in a while it happens, but yeah, this is going to be interesting.
I think it's very interesting.
So one piece, the solo is actually going to be on point, I hope. And then one piece will be, I guess, in ballet slippers, or it could be on point. It's a piece with couples, and or in character shoes, which are high heels. And then the last piece is that I just mentioned that we're working on now is going to be in sneakers.
Wow, that's quite the change.
Yeah, so each piece is very different. So if the audience doesn't like one, they'll hopefully like another.
Well, they might. I'm sure they probably will like all three of them. So that'll be great. So is there anything else you'd like to add to your wearable art, or your artwork, your artistry, your photography?
Well, the only thing with the jacket is that I have been wearing it to a couple of music concerts already, because it's pretty filled up now, but it is a work in progress. So I'm hoping to add a Janis Joplin patch that I've seen online, and the Doors, and the rest is going to be just whenever I find them again, which again was the whole fun part of doing this project.
I think it's great. Thank you for sharing it with us. That'll be fun for people to see.
Oh, well, thank you for asking.
The final pieces in this show are the stained glass pieces created by Lauren Long. These are the turtles, pelicans, and tropical coves we heard about earlier that she worked on during the pandemic. I hope you have enjoyed our show. I want to thank our artists for sharing their beautiful work with us, and I especially want to thank CTSB TV for all their help in doing this program, and to Rich Frederick for his patience and his assistance in making this show possible. I look forward to seeing you at the 21st Creative Lee Art Show next year in the Lee Library. Thank you.